Welcome to XecurityPulse, where we dive deep into the heart of digital defense and cutting-edge cybersecurity. In today's fast-paced, connected world, protecting our data and systems has never been more critical. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, an IT professional, or just someone who wants to stay safe online, XecurityPulse is your go-to resource for the latest strategies, boot camps, and tools to fortify your digital footprint. From defending 5G networks to zero-trust security assessments or preventing data breaches in your software applications, each episode will give you practical tips, expert analysis, and everything you need to stay ahead of the curve in cybersecurity.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Security Pulse. This is your host Taha Sajid. I welcome you all into this podcast show. Today we'll be talking about zero trust security in the context of browsers and web browser security. We have with us Shourya. Shourya is a principal security engineer with SquareX. He's a patent holder. He has also a speaker in Black Hat and different, renowned cybersecurity conferences. He's been leading the development of the innovative web-based security solutions with SquareX. It's been my privilege to have with me Shourya. Today we'll be discussing mainly on the web security based like solutions, which is how if you are just going to internet, running through different applications, browsing your data, how you can make everything secure, in a zero trust basically like mindset where everything you're doing is being monitored, is being protected, so you can just feel secure in trying to access your data through different applications. We'll be also going through demo where he'll be showcasing what is this browser security is all about by highlighting different use cases, examples of how you can protect and secure your data. And it's been an honor for me, to have this being showcased through my platform. So without any delay, I'll hand over this to Shourya. Shourya, welcome to the show. It's all yours now. Please take our audience through this interesting webinar and your solution, please.
Hi, Taha. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And what I'll do is I'll quickly share my screen, and we'll walk through with the whole browser security space and what all challenges there are these days.
So as he is sharing this screen, guys, we will not be just going through the solutions and all the more like wonderful things what Shourya has to offer, but we'll be also taking the Q&A. It will be a fun-filled session. So if you have any questions like throughout the webinar or throughout the demo, please leave it on the Q&A section, or in the chat. And I'll be taking over all the questions, whatever you have to ask, and also I'll be asking my questions to him. So it will be a fun-filled like session. So just enjoy and just happy learning. Shourya, let me add this to the stage. Here you can start, Shourya.
Oh, great. So, just to add a little bit about myself. So I work as a principal software engineer at SquareX, and I presented my work before at many major conferences. Like my work has been published at Black Hat Europe Arsenal. I've also conducted workshops at Texas Cyber Summit, and this year I gave multiple talks at DEF CON. So, talking a little bit about SquareX, so we are founded by Vivek Ramachandran. He has been in the security space for over 20 plus years and has discovered like many zero-day vulnerabilities and has given like more than 25 talks, including DEF CON and Black Hat. Before this, he also founded this company called Pentester Academy. And right now, he is also the Black Hat Arsenal Review Board member. We are backed by Sequoia Southeast Asia. And just to add a little bit more, about the company. So we are actually a browser detection and response company. So we basically provide a solution that allows you to detect, mitigate, and threat hunt browser-based attacks, and that would work across both managed and unmanaged devices. Our DNA has always been around, putting out bleeding edge research. So these are like some of the examples of the research we have put out, which has been covered by mainstage media, where we have put in, the limitations of existing, email providers, and also we have shown how secure web gateways are, not as per the latest trends of attacks that are happening, which we will cover in detail during this discussion, and also a little bit about extensions, where we showed limitations of the existing frameworks. So, I think the most important thing to understand is that browser nowadays is in itself a very, very complicated platform. Some people might actually compare it with an operating system itself. And because there are so many different components within a browser, earlier it was just, very simple CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. But now you have WebAssembly, you have so many different web protocols running within your browser. And the fact is that most of the application these days are actually running through the browser. And these are some numbers which we have pulled in from different places, which basically shows that most of the work that you're actually doing is from the browser. And when we talk about zero trust in general, the biggest motto is never trust, always verify, which I think is the most important thing to understand. And browsers are generally treated as an untrusted endpoint, and that is very much true because browsers were originally made as a consumer product, which was later fit in for an enterprise use case. And because of that, it is not inherently designed to be like completely secured in all terms. And that is what is most important if we try to think of it from the zero trust principles themselves, that by default we shouldn't assume it to be secure. Now, if we talk about a typical, web browsing experience in an enterprise, typically you have like a browser which might be getting access by, your employees, either directly in your office premise, or might be getting access from, a bring your own device situation or from a remote worker. And then you have, your files coming in from the browser. You have your content being consumed from the browser. You connect to all these networks and you access those websites from the browser, and you visit all the websites from the browser. So your browser is sort of the most important piece which is there, and where most people are not really putting any security layer on. Now, as a general practice, and as since we are talking in the sense of not trusting anything, it's very important that we put right set of security controls at every level. So, as you can see in this diagram, in most of the organizations, they use these two solutions, which I have highlighted here as, with red boxes. So on the top, you see is a secure web gateway. And then on the bottom, you see an endpoint security solution. So nowadays, whenever we talk about zero trust, there are like, of course, the situation about accessing, verifying the identity and accessing any kind of private application. And then there is also important to have like a deep traffic inspection of whatever public browsing you're doing, because you cannot trust anything on the internet as well. And that is where, we have this whole umbrella of SASE, which is the Secure Access Service Edge. And within SASE comes your ZTNA solutions and your SWGs, which are secure web gateways. And all the traffic that you are basically viewing on the browser goes through that. And what they do essentially as part of secure web gateway is that they basically do an SSL interception. So whenever you're visiting a website, they intercept the traffic, they analyze it, and then they basically allow or deny based on all the policies that you have set in. And let's say anything that passes through goes to your endpoint security solution, or which is similar to like an antivirus which you're running on your machine and checking for anything malicious which is sitting on your host. But as I mentioned, this is one big missing piece, because nowadays there are many kind of attacks which can happen from within the browser as well. Like we have these newer technologies like WebAssembly, which are running entirely within the browser, and you can actually write native code which can run on the browser itself. So if we talk about secure web gateways in general, there are some challenges with attack detection with them. So the very first, challenge that we all need to understand is that they are not web application context aware, which means that they are using network layer inspection to figure out application level attacks, which might not cover most of the use cases. And this is what is the limitation that we all have to understand, that they can do some level of inspection when it comes to network, but they do not have any concept of windows or tabs. They do not have any concept of user interaction. And similarly, nowadays, as the web platforms are becoming way too complicated, there are websites who can ask for permissions like your location, clipboard, and things like that. And just to give you a very basic example, let's say a data exfiltration happens. Now, a secure web gateway will just, even if let's say it's able to stop, it will just tell like, hey, this was a request which was going in and which got stopped. But you don't know whether it came from a clipboard or whether it came from, which particular means, because they're not aware about what is happening and what are the kind of interactions which are happening on the browser. Similarly, lastly, there is one big thing which is missing, which is browser extensions. So nowadays, people are installing a lot of browser extensions also, and they don't have right set of tools to actually have a visibility over the kind of extensions employees are using. And like I mentioned before, you cannot really trust all of these these untrusted endpoints, which are the browser themselves. Similarly, one biggest limitation which people often ignore with secure web gateways is actually their cloud processing limitations. So here, I'm not mentioning any specific vendor names, but whatever you see here are actually pulled in from their public documentation. And to it might be surprise for many people, but all of these vendors are actually pulled from the Gartner report. And as you can see, some of them cannot scan more than 15 MB, and that just shows how big the limitation is. Since they are not able to scan anything beyond 15 MB, you can only create policies to do a blanket block or blanket allow, because as a business they also want to thrive, and they cannot do like such a great level of processing on the cloud when they're actually at the live level they're trying to open files or download files. And similarly, there are also limitations on zip recursions. So let's say I take like a known malware like ransomware, any ransomware like WannaCry, and let's say I try to zip it. Now if I keep putting it into multiple zip levels, there are limitations around that as well. Like one of the vendors can literally just do it up to 3, and if the zip level is more than 3, you can only create like a blanket block policy without actually understanding whether the content itself is malicious or not. And some vendors don't even mention that. You have to actually contact the support to understand that. And that also shows there are some level of limitations with secure web gateways as well when it comes to cloud processing. Now, this is like a small, picture of me and our team giving this talk at DEF CON this year, and this is the title of our talk, which was "Breaking Secure Web Gateways for Fun and Profit." And in this talk, what we showed was more than 25-30 ways to actually bypass all the top secure web gateways in the Gartner report. So we picked all the ones which were in the magic quadrant, and we tried to bypass them. And to our surprise, it was actually pretty easy. And many of the attacks that we created were literally made by a few interns using ChatGPT, which just shows, how simple it is as long as you know what you're doing. So, like I mentioned before, typically whenever you access a website on the internet, your secure web gateways does all the inspection of all the public websites that you're visiting. Now, as you can see, I have pointed out here 3 different sections. One is the client-side attacks, then it is the unmonitored channels, and the last one is the attack that we are naming the last mile reassembly attacks. So what happens is that, like I mentioned before, there are many client-side attacks which most secure web gateways do not have any visibility on. This includes things like, whether there is a crypto miner running in WebAssembly, or there is, any kind of a pop-up or notification-based things. There is a webcam steal happening. There is a clipboard steal, clickjacking, malicious phishing pages with captcha protection, risky browser extension. I can keep on naming them. But all these things are something that can only be detected at a browser level. Similarly, there is limitations around checking and inspecting, lot of unmonitored channels as well. So what I mean by unmonitored is that they are very newer tech, and right now the capability of the existing secure web gateway is mainly around HTTPS. But whenever it comes to all of these newer protocols, like if we talk about WebRTC, or if we talk about just a simple secured WebSocket, that most of the vendors cannot actually inspect them. And what they do is they just say, you can do a blanket block of the protocol itself, and most even don't provide option for that. So that also, shows a limitation that if an attacker is using all of these protocols as a mean, and if there are no policies set in to do an inspection or blanket allow or block, they can actually bypass a lot of data, not just in terms of data exfiltration, but also in terms of bringing a malicious file in from the internet. And the last one is the last mile reassembly, which I'm just going to focus right now on. So, as the word suggests, it's last mile reassembly. So, what happens is, like, let's say you use certain ways. Now, those certain ways can be multiple. Uh, just to cover one example of that to make it clear, one of the attacks that we showed were called chunking attacks. Now, to explain this, as you can see here, what an attacker will do is that it will take a malware and it will break this malware into multiple chunks. And by chunk, I mean, multiple parts. Now, what will happen is that it will put all of these parts into different endpoints. And now what will happen is that, let's say a tab opens, it will try to fetch all of these individual paths using network request. Now, as they are doing the inspection at a network level, they can only see and understand that, hey, this small part is going through, but they cannot really know, since it's a full malicious file, to figure out whether it's malicious enough. And since they do not have any context about tabs or windows, what people can do and what attackers can do is that they can take in all of these individual parts, which are actually getting bypassed through the secure web gateway, stitching them together, and then triggering a download from the browser itself. So there are JavaScript functions available nowadays to very easily trigger a download as a blob, and just stitching all of these parts together, you can actually recreate a already known malicious file which was earlier getting blocked. So just by changing the way I'm delivering and reassembling at the last mile, which is the browser, we were literally able to bypass almost all the secure web gateways at the magic quadrant. Now, this is again, just one example, but we showed multiple other ways as well. And what we have done is that we have basically put in this website called as browser.security. And let's say, if someone wants to test what are the limitations of their own secure web gateway, they can actually visit this website. And what we have done is that we have put together all of these individual attacks here as simple buttons. So you can go here, click on them, and try downloading those files. And doing that, it will just show you that what are the current limitations you have if you don't have something which is a browser native solution. So as you can see here, it also covers like file chunking attacks, like, if there's a straight split. So straight split, it's just like a simple breakage into chunks. Then reverse split is like you break into chunks and then you reverse the content of that individual chunk. And then there is randomized size, which is, having chunks, but having of different sizes. And then you mix and match both of them to make it more complicated. The same can go for one more thing, which we are calling here as hiding in plain sight. But this is very similar to, smuggling a malicious file through already known resources. So let's say, you're opening a simple image or a simple SVG file. We can actually embed a malicious file within that through steganography, or through, just putting it as a small variable or a tag within a SVG or a CSS. And then on the client side, we can use JavaScript to take that malicious file out of that resource and then triggering a download. And there are also ways to test out, all the unmonitored channels and also encryption. To our surprise, if something is end-to-end encrypted, even if people are doing SSL interception, since they don't know how to decrypt that information, they cannot really block any kind of data exfiltration happening, or a malicious file being coming in, because now JavaScript itself is like way too complicated and way too advanced, and you can literally unzip a file on the client side within the browser. So you just need to encrypt your file and have the password in your JavaScript file which is on the browser. To the end user, it will just feel like a normal download, but in reality what you're doing is that you are sending a complete malicious file which is encrypted, putting the password in and triggering a download. The same can be done for file encoding as well. So, lastly, I would also want to cover, why exactly they are not enough to, protect against these kind of attacks. So, there are like multiple ways we can look at it. So, like I mentioned, there are a lot of things which are happening on the browser. So, let's say, you visit LinkedIn.com, you click on new message, and you try to upload a file to the message thread. So now what will happen is that to actually understand what's happening, there are two ways they can do it. One way is that they can literally create like an emulated browser and do like a live dynamic analysis. Now, this sounds okay technically, but in reality, this would just make it so expensive to run, because they literally need to have those many emulated browser running as many users are. And that would just not make it scalable enough. The second thing would be that they start taking the user context and the browser again and again from the browser, which is again not possible, and running like an emulation to figure out, hey, what would happen if this click was really allowed to go through, because this will just make it very difficult to scale, and also would affect the user performance as well. Now, if you have a browser native solution, you can still have your secure web gateway, which is going to protect many things at the network level. But having a browser extension, or having like a custom browser, any of these two solutions, you can actually have an in-browser intelligence which can verify all the things which are happening within your browser as part of interactions, and basis that it can allow or disallow certain actions from happening, and stopping all of these last mile reassembly things from happening as well. So this is just to show you, how it's not possible for them to scale and do everything at the cloud. While it itself has its own place, you also need another layer, which is the browser layer, to actually help you protect against most of these attacks which are happening these days, and give you more visibility around the mediums through which all this data exfiltration, or bypassing of malicious file could happen through, like browser extensions or clipboard, or things like last mile reassembly. So yeah, this is more about browser security, a basic overview of what last mile reassembly is, and we walk through with a bit of example of file chunking as well. So what I'll do now is that I will just show you a small example of how this would look like. So what I'll do now is that I'll show you an example with uh, chunking attack, and show you like how it would typically look like. So so in this video, what I'm doing here is that I've basically opened browser.security, which is the endpoint which I showed earlier. And let's say you open the state split attack, and you try to click on try the attack. As you can observe on the right side, this is the network tab, which is showing how exactly the requests are going in. And if we click on the attack, we can see like there are multiple requests going into an AWS S3 bucket, and it's trying to fetch all of these paths individually as different network requests. Now, the file which we are trying to download here is an already known malicious file, which, if you were just doing like a normal download, it would have been flagged and stopped by a secure web gateway. And but in this way, when it's getting fetched through multiple paths, and being stitched together using JavaScript, and then a download is triggered, we can see like to the end user, the experience is just like a normal download, because uh, every user is not opening a network tab and figuring out how many requests were sent for that file to be downloaded. And on the JS side, we are just putting them all together and triggering a download. So as you can see here, it's a small docm file, 110 KB, and it was fetched using multiple of these files. Now, if we open virus total and drag and drop this file, we can see almost 41 vendors detected it as malicious out of 68. So it's already a well-known malicious file which has been put out across all the major threat feeds, but it was still getting bypassed with a secure web gateway on. Of course, in this video, I'm not showing you switching on the secure web gateway because we don't want to point out like a particular vendor. But in this case, it's one of the topmost vendors out there. The same thing can be done for all the other ways as well. Like I mentioned, you can mix and match and do it with the reverse split, or you can do it with, like reverse split, or you can do like mix and match and all of those things as combination as well. Now, one thing that people often say is like, hey, if the malicious file is, passing through my secure web gateway, my endpoint security solution will pick it up, right? And the answer to that is, yeah, I mean, that's true for a good number of files, but your EDR is literally like, the last step in your whole security stack. And knowing this such an attack can easily be made, and they exist, you wouldn't want your EDRs to be, the last set of deciding factor whether to actually allow it or not. And there have been cases where, people have made, a lot of things which can actually bypass the basic checks that EDRs are doing as well. And like I mentioned, there are many attacks which basically live and die within the browser itself. Like, for example, if it's a malicious WebAssembly, or if it's a phishing page. For phishing page, you don't have anything except your secure web gateways to stop you against. And just to show you an example for that as well. So, in this case, like I mentioned in browser.security, if let's say, we are on the left side, we have created a section which is showing the same file which you are trying on through, all the right side. So these are basically the ones which are directly being opened or directly being fetched. And these can be stopped by a secure web gateway because it's a standard method. Now, if I click on any of these malicious websites, these are already the ones which are on, popular threat feeds. This is how it looks like with your secure web gateway off. And let's say when I enable it and I try to open the same website, this will basically get blocked by the secure web gateway. Now, if I try to do the same thing using one of the last mile reassembly methods, so similar to file, there are ways to do the same thing for websites as well. Like for example, you can actually render the whole website on a canvas, and when you do that, you can actually make it interactable as well. And doing so would bypass many of these checks as well because they are just working on a basic URL filtering, and they're not able to do analysis of how exactly the page has been painted. So this is one of those attacks, which is an MHTML attack, where we are rendering the whole file using MHTML. And if we try to open the very same file, we can see like, even with the secure web gateway on, this particular website is still opening. And that just shows, that these last mile reassembly controls can be applied for websites as well. And that makes it even more dangerous because unlike your EDR, you don't have any more options for protection against these phishing pages. So yeah, any questions so far?
I think I have a lot of questions for you, Shourya. I'm just waiting for you to finish and then I can start my questions. I think we can do one more demo, Shourya. If you can go through a demo where the actual, if we are downloading a file, let's say a malicious file, and if something is happening, then how would you uh, do a protection after that?
Sure. So I have this one example here. Um, and on this example, I'm also going to show you how a browser native solution like, for example, SquareX can help you against all these attacks. So this is like a made up page. This is not the real Google Chrome page. And as you can see, this is right now hosted on run.app, which is something, we can easily do it through a Google Cloud account. And many a times, since all of these secure web gateways work at uh, at URL levels, since it's a newly, if let's say your domain is old enough, and if all the checks are being taken place in such a way that the URL itself is bypassed, you can actually open and have the page at least rendered on the browser itself. So now here, let's say, as you can see here, the certificate I've blurred out, but this basically shows that the secure web gateway is on right now. And there is an SSL interception which is happening. Now, what we'll do is we'll basically open the network tab just to show you like which particular method we are using here. And we are using here a WebSocket message, which is one of the unmonitored channels. So we are now sending chunks of file using a secure WebSocket. Now, once all of these chunk files are fetched, what it's going to do is that it's going to trigger a download. So if I open the same exe file here, we can see like, it's already a known ransomware, which is WannaCry. And this basically bypassed just because we are fetching all these things as small chunks over WebSocket, which is one of the unmonitored channels. Now, what we'll do if we have, a SquareX present, this is how our dashboard looks like. So you have means to specify and create policies across all different things like websites you're visiting, the files you're downloading, whether, clipboard, what kind of data is being allowed on clipboard. Just to give you an example, there have been cases where organizations want to control what kind of data is allowed to be copy pasted on ChatGPT. So that's also something you can do with a browser native solution. So in this example, what we are doing is we are creating a simple file download policy, which basically puts a control on top of the browser. So let's say, anything bypasses your existing network layers, and let's say something reaches your browser. After that, this policy will take place. Now, of course, like any other product, we have a full-fledged policy builder. And within this policy builder, we also have very granular properties available, which will allow you to literally, block even a QR code appearing on the page. So it's as small as a little image on the page, which is way more granular compared to, existing network-based solution, which allow you to do it at a categorization of the URL level, because we also allow you to do it even at a very specific content level as well. Now, one of the problems that we have generally seen people struggle with newer products is that they have to understand what properties to use and things like that. So for that, we provide like a big set of policy libraries that they can start off with. And also, we have smartly used an AI prompt here as well. This will not be used for like any other information rather than just filling the form. So let's say I want to just block, uh, let's say I'm creating a very generic policy like blocking a malicious or a suspicious file. I can just put it in the prompt and it will autofill the form for me and just make it, easier for me to select the right set of properties. So as you can see, it has picked in a property called as file scanner verdict, which is basically, something which can be malicious or suspicious. This is again a very generic policy. Let's say I assign it to a few of my departments, and this information we basically pull in from your identity provider. We can fetch in like which employee lies in which department, and the same information can be appeared here. Now, as a solution, this is a browser extension. So now what we'll do is, as you can see on the top right, there is a small icon here, which is the SquareX icon. And this basically shows that, the SquareX is enabled right now. And since we have applied the policy will also take place here. Now, what we'll do is we'll again do the same thing where, we will try to download the file. And we can see here, like, this time this download was blocked. And as you can see on the network tab, your socket still worked. So, of course, since we are not doing a network-based inspection from your network, all the information was going through. But the moment it hit the browser, the policy took place. And since this additional layer was there, it was able to analyze the file and stop the download from triggering even before it hits the disk. As you can see here, the download was blocked. Now, the same information is also visible on the dashboard under detections. So you can go here and see like, how exactly a user reached that particular website, which is something which helps really well when it comes to threat hunting. And let's say, someone searched for some term on Google, they clicked on a link, then they completed a captcha and they reached another link. So the whole user journey will be visible in this attack graph. And this is something that we give to add more value to the threat hunting teams, because one of the problems we have seen is that people have to often go ask the guy, hey, how you reach that page, because existing solutions just give you like one page, this came from this link. But how exactly a user reached that place is something most solutions cannot give. And that's something we help out with as well, because we can literally track all the user interactions happening. So let's say someone did something on a page, they right clicked and click on open a new tab, it opens a new tab, then they click on another link which opens another tab. The whole user journey can be captured and showed in this attack graph. Now, just to add a little bit more, we also show all this information here where we are showing the file hash. You also have a link to open it in virus total. We also give a small analysis of what is happening and which policy was basically failed and things like that. Now, one more very, I would say, advanced feature that we have is called attack vision. Now, what attack vision does is that, let's say, you have certain user groups in your organizations which are way more vulnerable. For example, customer support as an example, because they might be dealing with a lot of information flowing in from external parties. Like, let's say they might be handling, the LinkedIn account, or they might be handling Twitter account. People might be sending them files, people might be sending them messages. And it's very important to understand what are the kind of things they are seeing, because sometimes it might just be very difficult to go back and ask how the user journey was when that violation took place, the policy violation took place. So in that case, what we do is that we also have an option to recreate what the screen was at the time when the policy violation took place. And this is what we call as attack vision. So as you can see here, like, we can literally see the whole user interaction. That user went to this website, they clicked on this button, and then download happened. And this you can selectively switch on for certain user groups which you feel are vulnerable enough to actually observe, at a screen level at what exactly was happening. And the best part about attack vision is it's very lightweight. So it's not like, running a screen recording all the time. It is basically, it looks like a video, but what it's doing is that it's basically reconstructing how the DOM is changing on that page. So it's recording the DOM changes and then reconstructing it as a video here. And this is our, something that we have already working on for a patent for this one. So yeah. This was an example showing attack vision, creating all these malicious file policies and then stopping them through a browser native solution like SquareX. Is there any questions?
I think we are good, Shourya. That was a wonderful demo, and
Thank you.
two things which really stand out for me is like the ease of like the browser, like the solution what you guys are having, like the UI overall, like the user, from the user experience point of view, it's very like understandable. People can relate to it, and the way that you have highlighted all the attack vectors and how you can, let's say, compare this with a traditional browser, this is something which really stand out, which I have not seen in other solutions, like to be honest. And secondly, it is very much relevant to it. People have I have witnessed like hundreds, if not more, like solution coming up with like a secure web gateway, like the SASE solution, like the CASB, all those zero trust branded solutions, but they're not hitting the real core. So if I'm a security, like an operator, let's say, if I'm an operator, if I want to, let's say, onboard some solutions, I have a whole list of zero trust solutions available. I may get confused at which to pick, what is the value proposition of each, and I would give my security team more headache. So things like a browser native solution would actually help the operational part as well, in terms of maintaining it, as well as it can gives me the overall visibility into my of my users as well, to how they are using, where they are going. So this is like really helpful. I have a couple of questions before I go to the use cases.
Sure.
So first off, I have like understood that you have we can get the complete view, and there are good value proposition which the other solutions are not offering. But in terms of like the session counts, like how many sessions it allows as a user for me to go through, is there any like technical limitation of the sessions? Plus, if I want to use it in the email, right, if I have my users accessing emails, there is some email attachment coming in, how does this solution protects the email one as well? Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, what happens is that first, to answer you on the limitation on the session. So there's literally no limitations. You can literally have, 10,000, 20,000 running at the same time for the same organization, and it will run very smoothly. The reason for that is like, since it's a browser native solution, our policy engine runs entirely on the browser. So that means like, all the policies are just synced in, and then all the decisions are taken within the browser, and then they are reported back whenever there is enough, network, or if it's something very urgent, it gets reported right away. And then all these information is then consumed from the dashboard, which I earlier showed you. There is no limitation in the sense of, how many people are using it. Now, now to answer your other question, can you please repeat that?
I think for the email use case, like if I'm using an email accounts, and if my users are downloading an attachment which is malicious, so is there any way that I can use this to protect that?
Yeah. So what happens is like, whenever we use email, there are two ways we access them. One is like via the browser, and the other one is, you're using some sort of a email client like Outlook. And what happens is that if we talk about, let's first talk about, links. So whenever you have any kind of links coming in, even if you click on Outlook, they will end up opening in your browser. So the moment they end up opening on the browser, we can stop it. And when we talk about attachments, so in case of attachments, since a browser native solution will work only within the browser, as long as you can enforce all the email access from happening from within the browser, where you can have like more context, uh, a browser native solution like SquareX can stop it. But if in case you're talking about any attachments which are coming from, a mail client which is outside the browser, as long as the flow goes in the browser, we can stop it. Otherwise, then you will have to rely on other network based layers to stop against them.
Got it. Cool.
But
Okay,
having
so
said,
now, please continue. Sorry.
just to add on that, having said that, things like last mile reassembly are definitely possible with something like browser, where they allow you to have like, some sort of a JavaScript execution. With, but case of your email clients, this might already be too restrictive. So, having a network based solution might help you in that up to a good extent. But when the moment it comes to the browser, you need like additional controls, because the platform itself is way too complicated. And
Cool.
talking about, in general, any data exfiltration or, any kind of download, chances are that employees, instead of, configuring their personal email on the Outlook, they will definitely try to access it from the browser. And that's where
Cool.
you need.
Yeah, got it. Very good. So I want to shift the focus from the web-based browser solution. For example, anybody accessing like a fintech app or a web app. So there are since I'm from a telecommunication industry, and and I'm a fan of how the low latency application works and how you can secure them, from the zero trust perspective. So what use case I'm trying to understand here is, and all of this would be also beneficial to our audience, that if there is a cloud native application, for example, running on a telco workload, right? And if there is managed services team who is trying to access those applications, for example, doing change management. So there is for example, like think about a network virtualization stack, which is coming from, let's say, Ericsson, Nokia, Cisco, all those vendors, and they are a custom-based application, which is, for example, not exposed to anybody outside public, And the only way to manage those applications is for the managed services team who log into these applications, and they do change management, fault management, all sort of those activities. So if I have to use a browser, for example, for this particular use case, if I'm using a browser, if I'm a managed services team, I'm already logging into my system. I'm using a VPN based client or like whatever to access that network. and I'm using a browser now. Here now comes SquareX, you know,
Yeah.
and SquareX, I can use that extension to make it activated, and anything which I'm accessing through it would be secure and would would give me that like luxury of security, right? So in
Yes,
that
absolutely.
case, if there is a use case where I have to enable, just I have to be very like ensure I need to very strict in terms of latency, in terms of performance requirement.
Yeah.
Would there be any way I can face latency or any like performance issues? And to and as a follow up, is there any way that I can use a lightweight or a light version in that use case, which can gives me more liberty in terms of accessing the applications more fastly?
Yeah, so to your point, you're absolutely correct. Like with all these low latency connections possible, it of course
Mhm.
amplifies the speed with which you are accessing all these applications, but it also amplifies the, I would say, your the scale of attack as well, because a
Mhm.
lot of things can be targeted. Now coming back to uh, the access, and coming back to the performance impact. So if we talk about performance impact, uh, unlike sort of SSL interception, etc., which are already affecting lot of performance when it comes to all of those traffic, having a browser based control would add very 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 minimal overhead over whatever interactions you're doing. And the reason for that is that browser itself has been optimized to run all of these extensions in a very lightweight way. So that means, like there are separate processes for certain things, there are separate separate actions which are taken for certain things. Even the environment within the window also is separate. So a lot of actions and a lot of optimizations have been done by existing browsers to make sure that extensions do not uh, put a lot of overhead on your browsing experience. And we also absolutely make sure, and any browser native solution has to make it sure that the performance impact is to the minimal. So of course, this is something that you can actually try out and see, but there is almost literally no bigger impact in any kind of performance when it comes to accessing these things. And also, coming back to the fact about accessing these things, like you mentioned, there might be many consoles, or there might be any portals that they might be accessing through the browser, and they might be using something like a VPN to connect and then access all these applications. To add a bit on that, we have also seen people working with us specifically around private app access. And what happens is that as a security posture, you would want to give the least privilege to everything, which basically means is, let's say you are running a VPN on your, let's say, your whole device. You would not want other applications other than your browser if your use case is just to access the console. So we also have a way to have something like a context aware access. So let's say, if there is an option where you can actually allow certain applications to be accessed only and only through the browser, which that would mean is, if you have the SquareX extension installed, then only you can access those applications. But if there is any app which is other than the browser, they will not be even able to make a connection to that. So that's also one more solution we can give out to people, where people can think of reducing the overall surface by just allowing the access through the browser, not through any other application, and having something like VPN which moves all the traffic from there.
Cool. Very good. Uh, Now, for example, let's say I'm using Cloudflare, Zscaler, and I'm just and it's just getting too expensive for me. Okay,
Yeah.
and I have to think for some other solutions, for example, SquareX or any other solutions which are providing the browser-based security like model.
Yes.
Now, as a security team, what do you think? What indicators of compromises or anything which would give me that flag that hey, I should go and find, go for a
Yeah.
web-based security solutions rather than a SASE or a secure web gateway-based solution. And what would trigger me, or what should I look for in terms of IOCs in trying to get towards you?
Yeah. So I think, I think this is, I think, where the biggest gap is, because what happens is that people actually don't have visibility on many things which are happening on the browser. And because all the other examples which I showed you, like where a chrome.exe was getting download, that will not even get reported in any of these secure web gateways. And since it will not get reported because they don't know what is happening on the client side, and that's where the lack of visibility creates more problems. So talking about from an organization point of view, if you want like a very robust setup, you of course need like security at every layer. Like if you have your endpoint security solution, you have your secure web gateways, all the vendors on your network level, you definitely need a browser security solution on your browser as well. But if you're talking from a cost perspective, uh, if if most of your traffic and most of your use cases are just around from the browser, then it makes sense to just have a browser native solution as well, because it can stop most of these things from happening. But having said that, if you have use cases where there might be applications outside the browser as well, within the browser, you definitely need a browser native solution. But for anything outside, you would still want to have something like a secure web gateway, so that the traffic from all of your other applications can go through in a secured way. But the moment it comes to browser, it becomes too complicated because it's like a operating system itself nowadays, and you definitely need a browser native solution. But as long as you have right set of manage controls, and let's say you can stop people from using other applications, and like all your applications are simply which are web based, it doesn't really make sense to spend too much money on other things as well. And a browser native solution can help you in a very good way as well. Talking about IOCs, let's say someone goes ahead and wants to try out a browser native solution. I can list down a few things they can look for. So like I said, right now there is no visibility, but if they have a browser native solution, they can know the kind of browser extensions people are using. Like many employees use browser extensions on their browser as well. Of course, all the known IOCs, like what are the the malicious file hashes, or the malicious website URLs, which are already known and present in threat feed but getting bypassed, can actually be observed as a medium as well for for looking at browser native point of view. And also identities. So we have also seen use cases where organizations are not even sure what all SaaS applications their employees are using, because it's a fact that almost 1/3 of the SaaS applications only support SSO. And that means like all the other 2/3 don't even support SSO, and the employees might simply end up visiting those websites, signing up there. And if, let's say, just to give you an example, which we have actually seen, where someone in an organization went ahead and created an account on one of the websites, and it's like a proper website, it will not get blocked from your existing controls because it's like a good reputation website. But what happened was they used the same credential as their internal application, and that website got compromised. So there's now an inherent risk, because if an attacker gets hold of your password on other websites, they can use the same to get access to your internal network. So since you don't have visibility over that, hey, this user is using all these shadow SaaS applications, you will not know, like, what all to stop for. So I would say shadow SaaS is another thing to look for.
Got it. Cool, cool. And just on this note, I just want to share my experience and how I think why this is so important.
Yes.
So anybody watching from Verizon, Comcast, like T-Mobile, AT&T, all those big telco players, when you spin up any 5G applications, every vendor uses open source libraries. Okay, and you usually have different environments. One is the sandbox environment, and then you have production environment. You normally, what you do is you first roll out your sandbox environment where you do all sort of testing. In that testing, there is pen testing, there is audits, everything what you do. And if you just go through your application stack, like the CNF, the containerized network functions, you'll see some open libraries. And when you scan those libraries, you'll see some CVEs coming up, right? In that CVE, what I've experienced is there are lots of CVEs which offers, for example, remote code execution, which is not been authenticated, and you will be end up exposing those applications inside, even to the internal employees. And anybody who is using a browser without any solution accessing those applications can be subjected to some attacks which you cannot prevent, right? So there is one way in trying to patch these applications which are having those CVEs coming in, and then there is another way to be proactive and to just use, for example, a solution like SquareX, no matter what. So even if those applications are compromised or something is like outdated in terms of patch, you still be secure to access those applications. So this is something which is, for example, a heads up. And secondly, in terms of your zero trust security posture, I love how Shourya, say that, hey, there is no like a one thing like, hey, this is the IUC, and if this is coming, then go to your like take SquareX, for example, right? This is no such thing, because it comes down to the risk appetite, it comes down to the visibility, it comes down to where in the zero trust maturity model you are in terms of uh, uh, your appetite. For example, you are in the optimum level versus you are in the beginners level. So browser is something which should be there in your domains, right? If you're not using any security tool for your browser, then you're not totally secure, right? So you are opening one attack vector for an attacker to come in and try to exploit that. So uh, whatever you do, try to think from the overall zero trust security perspective, and make sure that you are doing just due diligence and trying to get security, in your network. uh, so I think, Shourya, thank you very much. I think it's been wonderful to have you. I just want to take your final thoughts in terms of where SquareX wants to go. For example, what are your like company's next 2-3 targets which you want to take on, like for 2000 for 2025, Q1, Q2, and so that we should be like looking forward to it, right? What are the next few things which you want to tell about?
Yeah, so I mean, as a space, browser security is now catching up, and everyone is now recognizing, like, oh, this is also something that can happen, and that's why, like, our focus would be to show, like, all different ways that attackers are already exploiting through the browser. So we are doing a lot of research around that, and we'll be putting out more research. Along with that, we're also working on data leakage prevention. So we are releasing like a lot of other features specific to data leakage prevention. Like I mentioned earlier, like, exfiltration, can be done through all of these, reassembly methods as well, where you can actually break files into parts and then upload it. And then, attacker can stitch them all together. And a network level inspection can't really figure that out. But that's also something that we are working towards. Of course, we already have policies for that, but we are also working on newer things that you can do with the browser, like, watermarking a web page, stopping actions like print, and masking information when you're accessing a website based on whether there's a social security number and information like that. So we are working a lot towards releasing newer features every week around DLP as well, and also putting out our research on different ways attackers can leverage browser as a medium. So just to add a little bit, I also gave a talk like this year around malicious extensions, and I basically showed how with a very minimal permission you can actually steal a live Google Meet stream as well, without actually requiring any kind of camera permissions. So that's also something which we are seeing extensions also exploiting, and they're using like names of known solutions like ChatGPT a lot. Like we recently found out, like, if you just search for GPT on the Chrome web store, you will end up finding like hundreds of extensions, and many of them are like just from random developers, and that just inherently adds a lot of risk in your organization, which people are not looking at.
Cool, man. Exciting things. I'm so looking forward to all these, and hope to see you again soon somewhere.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Shourya, for coming. Thank you, SquareX, for your time, and to all of our audience. I think it's been a great conversation. I hope that you have enjoyed the discussion, the demo, the solution what Shourya presented. This is me, Taha Sajid from SecurityPulse, signing off. Until next time, take a very good care of yourself, and remember always that security, like today, is not being smart. It's been essential. It should be the highest priority, and think about just making security right from the design. We should not be taking to the right side of the house. It should be right there in the design, and this is browser security is something which is a must have for you guys. So that's it from my side. Like, any last thoughts, like, Shourya, you want to say before we leave?
No. I think thank you so much for having me on this podcast, and it was lovely talking to you, getting your insights on telecom as well, and yeah, I'm looking forward to meet you as well in person,
Sure.
and I hope like this has been insightful for a lot of people who are watching this.
Sure, lovely. Thank you guys. You'll enjoy your day, and until next time, all the best. Goodbye. Thank you.
If you're ready to navigate the ever-evolving digital landscape with confidence, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the XecurityPulse community. Stay secure, stay informed, and let's pulse through the future of cybersecurity together.